Hello ladies and gentlemen, Reginald Scott here, and thank you for clicking on this video. What you're about to watch is me attempt to do a bit of fiddling with this bike, basically, a bit of bike maintenance. This is my girlfriend's bike. It's basically what I built for her out of the parts from my old Decathlon bike. This original steel frame, which I managed to get hold of for not very much money, and it's actually a really nice frame. And a few new parts like the seat and the seat post and a few other bits on the bike are new. Now, because she's such a petite lady, she's struggling to reach the bars, and as you can see, this old quill stem here is pretty long. So what I'm intending to do today is switch that out with, let's see now, can I reach? This stem adapter, okay, which should fit in around about there. And then once that's in, I'm hoping to attach this much shorter stem, and that will give me the opportunity to fit a different set of bars as well, which are currently resting under my armpit. There we go. These bars are somewhat wider than the originals and a little bit chunkier as well. So again, it's sort of to give her a bit more confidence and make it a little bit easier for her to ride this bike. So, I'm going to pop the camera down for a second and we'll get started. That's the plan anyway. I'm hoping to salvage the bar tape. Whether I'm going to be able to do that is another question. See now, can you see? There you go. But we shall see. Now, already I've loosened off this collar because that was a little bit of a tricky job, and it's just occurred to me that the new quill stem, or the quill stem adapter, is aluminium, and this frame is a steel frame, and obviously when you put aluminium and steel together you get the two metals welding. They chemically weld together, so I've had to go and scrounge around for some grease as well to try and prevent that from happening, but hopefully that should be okay. Right, now I've got this collar off, I'm going to undo this Allen head bolt in the top here, or this hex key, should I say, rather than using the trade name. It's a little bit stiff. So this goes right down to basically where the forks are in the steerer, and stops the handlebars from moving around. Like I say, I do hope that this is brand new tape. She had a little bit of an accident and crashed her bike, and I put brand new tape on before that was brown, kind of matched the seat, and then she ruined that when she crashed, which is fine. You know, I was more concerned about her than I was the bike, despite the fact the bike was kind of new. And I actually brought this thing back to the workshop, and I had to buff up all of these triggers and everything here because they were all burred up and had lots of nasty sharp edges on, so I just got a buffer on the angle grinder and buff those all up. But yeah, I'm hoping to salvage that tape and switch it over to the next set of bars. Now normally with a modern bike you would be able to just take the bars straight off from the front and put the new ones on, but because these are old-fashioned bars, the style that they come on means that I have to remove all the tape from one side at least, including the hoods, to even get the handlebars out, which is most inconvenient. Anyway, that appears to have come out. Okay, so I guess that's good. I guess we can call that so far so good. And this also appears to be moving. Right, we're going to have a problem here, aren't we? So we need to disconnect these brake cables. Now, which is the best way of doing that? I've pulled these together. Yes, I can. I can just unhook that from there. And then I can unhook that off there. These are kind of a bit like the, I don't know, you can't actually see them, can you? They're a little bit like the kind of brakes you get on a cyclo-cross bike. They've got new pads on, but I kept the original brakes. Right. Now, we should be able to pull this out. It's coming. Marvellous. Ah. Okay. We appear to have a small problem. So the little wedge that fits on the end there is missing because I foolishly, possibly, it's probably my fault to be honest with you, undid it a little bit too far and allowed that to drop inside the frame. So now we're going to have to see if we can fish that out. To be honest with you, I can't even see it. Ah, there it is. So that's the original wedge. As you can see, it's got kind of teeth on it. It's actually not in particularly good condition. It's made of steel, like the new one is made of Ali. I'm going to stick a bit of WD-40 down inside there because I noticed there's some rust. And although there's not much I can do about that at this stage in the game, it's probably best if I just try and force some of this in here, and this does actually help with rust and rusted parts. It repels water basically. There is one thing I forgot to tell you. Before you start to do any job like this, you should actually pull up your sleeves. There you go, because that means business now. Right. That will also help me get that part in there. Right, let's see how tight this is. So I've got a feeling that it might actually be pretty tight. Probably best to put these back on. I'm thinking now it wasn't necessary to take these off. Right, the moment of truth. Is this actually going to fit? Ooh, you know what? It might just... It does. It does fit. Oh, I'm so relieved. Oh, that's marvellous news. I'm so glad about that. Right. So that does actually go in there. Now that's stopping part way down. So now I've got to find out why. Right folks, as you can see it does fit. It fits very nicely in fact. Slides in beautifully. However, what I've noticed is the plug, this sort of wedge style formation that sits on the end here. The wedge, yeah, that holds it in place when it's inside the steering tube. This one is much smaller and it slots in really easily down there. In fact, it's got a lot of leeway, maybe a millimetre all round. This one doesn't. This one is a perfect fit. And the problem is it's getting part way down the tube and it's stopping on something in here. There's a slight decrease in the width of the tube. So in order to stop it from sticking up like this, which is no use, right, I need that all the way down really for it to look neat and tidy. What I'm going to do is just buff the surface of this aluminium plug, this aluminium wedge, just enough so it slides down a little bit further. I mean, it'll still wedge in because it's got all that movement. But I'm just going to buff the sides off it just a little bit. So it's just a tiny bit slimmer so it fits all the way down, because at the moment it just stops there. Can't get it out now. Got it jammed in, there we go. So it stops about there. If I take that out, let's see if we can do this. Sorry, I just moved the camera slightly so you can see. That's about as far as it's going down, which is not far enough. Right, ladies and gents, after what can only be described as quite a considerable amount of buffing with the grinder, with the polishing pad, I've managed to reduce the size of the plug enough that it fits nicely down the hole. Ta-da! It only just fits down, so that's good, it's a nice fit. How much did I take off in the end? I've got my calipers here with me, so I shall have a look. So the diameter of this is 22.060506. The diameter of the plug now is 21.53. So I've taken about a mil, about a bit less than a millimetre off that. If you don't have an angle grinder with a polishing pad on, I guess you could use sandpaper. And if you don't have sandpaper, well, I think you're pretty much stuck, basically. But halfway, about here or halfway down, this changes in size. So I suppose you could stick a reamer down there and ream it out, but I don't know. It was just easier to do this, I guess. Anyway, let's carry on unabated. We are going to fit our stem, and we're going to grease this up so we don't get too much of a reaction between the aluminium and the steel in the way of chemical welding. Now you'll notice on this stem in a second when I show you, you'll notice that there are torque settings here. Okay, 6 Newton meters. For this you will need an adjustable torque wrench to make sure that you've got, you can make minute adjustments there on the torque wrench, and some sockets, of course. So you can tighten this correctly so you don't over tighten it, because if you over tighten something you run the risk of snapping the bolts or crushing something or tearing the thread off something. So it's quite important that you get the torque setting correct. But before that comes the greasing. Right, now that's all greased up, we're going to slide it down inside the frame, and I'll wipe the excess grease off. There we go. If you would like to see the review of the bike stand that I'm using, it's a budget bike stand. It was less than £30 including delivery. You can look at the review up, well, just sort of here. I'll stick the link over here, and if you click on that later on when this video is finished, you'll be able to see this budget bike stand as well. It's actually pretty good. I'm very impressed with it. Now that this is on, I'm going to do the torque settings for these bolts. These Allen heads or hex. Right, it's the right size. So we're looking for 6 Newton meters. So I'm adjusting this now. Right, that is set up, or should be set up, for 6 Newton meters. There we go, and you just do it until it clicks. And then when it's clicked, that is the maximum. There we go. And that way you don't over tighten them. Smashing. Right, now it's time for the handlebars to go on. Now again, you have to be careful with how tight you make these because you don't want to crush the bars. Now the information for if you buy a set of bars or you buy a headset or a stem or anything like this, the information should be available in the manual. So now that's all finished. Oops, try and get this off the tripod without breaking it. Is to switch the bar tape over, put the hoods and cables back on this, and then we'll have a nice new set of bars, a nice headset, and a nice new stem. So that's great. That gives us more options and more flexibility with the kind of bars and things we can have. And it looks pretty good. Perhaps surprisingly, I managed to salvage the tape. It actually fits back on, so that's quite good. It's maybe not as nice as it was before. A few more creases in it. But yeah, I think that works. It'll save me buying some more, I suppose. You know, this stuff is expensive, so any little savings you can make on your bike projects is always a good idea. I've encountered another problem, however. These style of these brakes, that's where the brake cable would pass through. So that's sort of the pulling point on the brake cable, and this new one doesn't have one. Now, it would probably be very unwise to drill a hole through that, for obvious reasons, being that it's aluminium and its strength is gained through its shape, and if I start messing around with its structural integrity, it might snap off. Although I doubt whether it would, but it's certainly probably not worth the risk. So now I've got to work out what I'm going to do to solve this problem. I know there are such things that you can buy which stick out the front here and hold the brake cable in place. Right, is that looking good, or is that looking good, or is that looking good? Look at that. All taped up. Dida, oh come on, what do you call it? Stem? Dida stem, Dida tape. Nice, huh? That actually worked out a lot better than I thought it would. Now all I have to do is sort this problem out. And then we're good to go. Like I say, I considered drilling a hole through the top here, but might not be the best idea, but that's really coming together now. Smashing. So she's got a lot less far to reach now than she had previously, as you can see. And the bars are also wider than the old bars. Let's do a comparison so you can have a look at that. They're not massively wider, but they are slightly wider, which makes them a bit easier to control. There you go. Great. Thanks for watching. If you want to see a video of me putting this bike together originally, then sort of click here. And if you want to see a review of this particular bike stand, click here in the middle. Thanks for watching, folks. Bye.